All right, now let's talk about IAM user groups. Okay, so AWS IAM user groups are collection of IAM users that share the same permissions. Okay, so by creating IAM groups, you can simplify the access management, and it makes it easier to manage permissions for a set of users with a similar requirements. Let's say we have two people who needs administrator access. So what you can do is, instead of attaching policy to them one by one, you can attach a policy to the group, and if you add those users into that group, so they will inherit the policy which is attached to that group. Okay, so here are some key points that you need to consider while looking through IAM groups. Creating an IAM user groups. How you can do that? You can create an IAM user group by logging into your management console and navigating to IAM management console. You can also use CLI or AWS SDKs to create your IAM groups programmatically. Now, the next thing is IAM group permissions. So before going there, let me go ahead and I'll show you how to create user groups. Okay, let me go to my AWS management console. This is my IAM console here specifically. Okay, now let's go to user groups. So that is what we are discussing in this video. I'll click on user groups here. Here, if you see, I don't have any user group as of now. So what I'll do is I'll click on create group. Okay, so after clicking on create group, it will ask me for the name of the group. What is a group name that you want to give? So I'll say admins. Okay, so basically that means these are my admins of this particular account. So here, after creating the group, what providing the name for the user group, what it will ask is you need to provide the you need to add the users to that group. So if you already have the users created, you can select them by checking this box. Let's say a Monkey Cloud, and I also want to add Dushyant. So I'll select those two users, and they would be part of this group called admins. Okay, so this is I am user adding users to the group. Now if you see here, attach permissions policies. So what do you mean by that? Let me go back to my documentation here. If you see here under permissions, so permissions can be granted to IAM groups using IAM policies, which are set of permissions that define what actions the group can perform on what resource. So we'll be speaking about these permissions or IAM policies in a while, but now try to understand that if you are attaching a policy to that particular IAM group, that means you are specifying what permissions that they can do. Okay, so you are specifying the permissions for them. Now, so here we already saw what are IAM user group users. Basically, the IAM users can be added into IAM groups, and the permissions granted to the group automatically apply to the users present inside that group. So users can belong to multiple groups, and the permissions granted to those groups are cumulative. That means one user can be part of multiple groups. Let's say Yashwant can be part of admins. He can also be a developer. So if say let's say I have two groups called admins and developers, so Yashwant can be part of both admins and developers, and he would get the permissions granted to those two groups. Okay, so that is what the meaning of the third one here. Next is IAM group management. You can manage IAM groups by adding or removing IAM users and by modifying the permissions granted to that group. So basically what we are saying here is you can add and remove users at whatever time you want. So let's say tomorrow Dushyant is no longer belongs to our organization. So what you can do is you can come here and you can remove Dushyant from the users and also from the group. So then what happens, Dushyant will not be able to access the AWS management console. Let me go back to the documentation. Now here if you see IAM group best practices. So the best practices for using IAM groups include creating groups that reflect job functions or business purposes and assigning permissions based on least privilege. Let's say Dushyant only wants access to a specific resource. For example, EC2 instance. He just wants to look or how many EC2 instances are present in my AWS account. That is his job. So just want to give him a read permission so that he can go to my management console and see what are the EC2 instances that are running. So I don't have to give him create permissions or delete permissions. He should not be able to delete an EC2 instance or create a new EC2 instance. He should only list the EC2 instance present in my particular account. So if that is required, I need to provide him those suitable permissions only. So that is called as principle of least privilege. You need to make sure that you're providing those permissions. And so reflecting your job functions or business purposes, you need to provide or you need to create a IAM group. Okay, so that is another point. So by using IAM groups, you can simplify access management and make it easier to manage permissions for a set of users with similar requirements. IAM groups can be used in combination with IAM rules and policies to provide a granular and secure way to control access to your AWS resources. Okay, so we can create a maximum of 300 groups in our AWS account, and IAM user can be a member of 10 groups at the same time. Okay, so that's it I had for IAM groups. Next, we'll look at what is IAM role and how to create an IAM role. Okay.